Greetings. Today's going to be a little different. During my birthday message, I indicated that we do have a great deal of the Word of God in our hearts, in our spirit, the knowledge of God. And the question is, how do we use that in a real world application daily to affect not only my life, but affect the other lives of others? And one of the other ways that we can use that is to call out many of the system ills that's moving in the wrong direction. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to call it call outs, and this is going to be just a few. One that's kind of important to me because many times I work as an independent consultant is to get paid. And the biblical principle of a workman is worthy of his hire. That is important. Not only are people not getting paid when they have completed the work and done the work, quote, according to spec, but a system exists that, in essence, they say, take me to court. Now, if it's one-off, I mentioned something about one-off the other day. If one person is doing it and the industry is not, then that's a different story. And I don't need to smear any particular nationality or what have you, but a number of some of the other companies, they are not abiding, and I don't call them offshore companies, they are not abiding by this. Because one, in order to take them to court, corporation, typically in most states you need to have a corporation to sue. These claims are a lot greater than, quote, $5,000, which is a small claims court type of thing. And they use the system. They use the system to consciously not pay people. In fact, it gets to the point now that they ask, what type of engagement do you want? And I specifically say, I'm going to say W-2 because I want to be under the federal laws. They say, well, you have a corporation. Why don't you go corp to corp? And the question always is risk reward. Do I get enough reward for the risk of you not being paid? Do I get an opportunity to write items into your contract? And they always say, well, this needs to go through legal. Well, that's fine. Let it go through legal. I don't have an issue with it going through legal. But I'm not going to work under the conditions you have. So in other words, they have a way of trying to move you into that direction such that, one, they don't pay you on time. Two, being paid on time. Two, they are very often late. Three, they don't pay you at all. And four, they tell you to go to court. Then once you go to court, they dissolve the corporation and move on to something else. Now we have someone that's sitting in a position of power, that is his practice. That is his practice. And I'm going to say this, getting into the construction area, one of the reasons why many subcontractors, one of the practices that I said once I started to do some subcontracting work, I'm going to pay all of my subcontractors personally. Because if you pay the general contractor doesn't pay the subcontractor has the ability to claim or put a lien on your property. But this is a practice that many of the businesses are using. So that's one practice that I'm calling out. And many of times these people will say, oh, we're Christian, or we're people of faith. Okay, so that talked about the corp-to-corp strategy. Well, we talked also about offshore. A number of years ago, the United States was a great place to work. Every major organization had its own HR department. HR department was solely there to acquire, produce the best results for that company. Okay. Later on, the onshore offshore models start to take hold, and a number of companies says, "Oh, we can do your hiring, we can do all the things you can do, and we can save you money." So, being that the quote God of the corporate world is money. Now let's just break this down. The United States Supreme Court has ruled that a corporation is a person. So now we have a person considered the corporation, that its God is money, and therefore, in order to earn more money, we're going to outsource our HR, our human resources, to an offshore company. Well, typically, the offshore company's primary purpose is not always for the betterment of that company. The offshore company primary purpose is for them to earn a profit. So many times they will not present the best, most qualified candidates because they are a lot higher and they cut into their margin. Also, the offshore companies do not have to abide by United States federal labor laws and compliance. So a number of times an onshore company will say, "Oh, we want to have an individual that may, let's say, that may violate discrimination laws, anti-discrimination, that may violate age bias, that may violate sexual orientation. They may violate a lot of laws. So therefore, the United States company won't engage in that. So what they do, they hire an offshore company, and an offshore company don't have to abide by those. They don't have to report quarterly or whatever the time period is. But the United States company then communicate to the offshore company, and the offshore company now looks for discriminatory situations. They look for appearance. They look for sex. They look for age. They look for gender or orientation. They look for a number of other type of things, and they actually do the discriminating for the United States-based company, but the United States-based company are not tagged with it, and therefore you have a whole segment of people that because of age, because of race, because of population, they are not being hired. Okay, so that's another one to be called out. The other one is age bias. Well, the United States it doesn't, in essence, have a, well, in fact, it's it's anti-age discrimination. But increasingly, once you get 50 years old, you find fewer and fewer companies that's interested in employing you. And they can come up with a number of reasons. Oh, well, you might cost us more in benefits, or you might do a number of other things. But none of the reasons typically are because you don't have the expertise and performance. Okay, I'm calling that out. So therefore, there are laws on the books. There's a lot of laws on a lot of books. The question is, laws can be on books, but the issue here is enforcement. What does it take to enforce it? And some of them get so crafty. We saw this in the Enron scandal, where when they went to court, there was some judge that basically says that one company, let's back up, there are organizations that have hundreds of corporations under their parent corporation, if they want to claim it as a parent corporation. Some of them have 500. We know one that has 500. We know, typically it's a practice that when you have when you're doing real estate and you have a property, each property has its own corporation. Okay, so the point of it was that when Enron went to court, it was said that because the parent company is here, and the company they were doing business was they mentioned 7 levels separation that they could not charge the 7-level deep corporation with any type of complicity in their scandal. So here it is. I'm sitting in a meeting. 2 of the 3 top credit card companies in the United States I've worked with. I'm sitting in meetings. And I'm asking the question. There is a bill before Congress that's going to be voted on in 30 days. Do we want to hold off on the decision to see what the results of that bill is? Here's the answer from the director. We are not, as an organization, very concerned about the legislative process. Let's take an example. If the bill is 300 pages long, we will then give 30 pages to 10 attorneys, and we will have each attorney look at its 10 pages. We will come together and see how we can best position ourselves such that we can get around it. Heart of the organization. Heart of what the Supreme Court now has ruled a person. Heart of a entity, which is a corporation, which the Supreme Court has ruled can be a person, that its God is money. We need to get away from that. Okay? Last things that I'm going to call out is, I call it a stronger penalty for blatant discrepancies in people writing a written report and video evidence. And many of the incidents that we've seen here in the United States, you would look at a written report and you would say, oh, this guy was very combative. This guy, he was, refusing, resisting arrest. This guy was, he tried to punch me. This guy did a number of different things. That's why either I killed him, did whatever I needed to do to him. Then when you see independent video evidence, it doesn't support any of what was being written. What it supports is that maybe that individual is trying to run away. Oh, the video doesn't show everything. Well, the video doesn't, but it does show the moment when you said you were in fear and that individual is moving in a different direction from you, unarmed. We as a system, we need to put deeper penalties on this such that not only does it not happen, but it's a scourge on our society. That gets into the area of implicit bias. Let's say, for instance, and I haven't had any issues with law enforcement, although I don't want to interact with them, just because, they have so much, quote, authority right there to, they can be the judge, jury within a matter of minutes, depending on how you speak or how you interact or what they think, or if they had a bad day or not. But if I was to, this was one of the questions in one of the sessions at some of the corporations that, oh, we want to get to know you better. We want to get to know you well. We want to get to find out a way how we can leverage our position so that we can utilize you better. Okay. Not so much directly based on your work, but how we can influence you into the areas we want. And I'm saying if I had an action and it was met with some disdain, if I had to pull off my skin color and put somebody else's skin color on, would that action be met with disdain? And the answer would be no. Because just based on the skin color, there is a bias and there are stereotypes that we're associating with that skin color. That needs to be called out. We need to, one, be aware of it. We, two, need to recognize that it's wrong. And three, we as Christians, we need to identify the spirit in every human, because that's what binds us to Father God, is our spirit. And we as Christians, we need to recognize individuals' spirit instead of the color that's on their skin. My thought is, suppose you didn't have color, but they found ways to discriminate. And that needs to be called out as a system. In England, they did it. You have two people of the same complexion, but one's Protestant and one's Catholic. Well, that's an issue. My thought is, how about using blood type? Well, you can't see blood type, I know, so don't discriminate. Okay. Have a great rest of the day. What are your thoughts?